My name is Megan Torres. I'm 31 years old. And the night my father finally learned what silence costs started with him raising a toast to the wrong child. He stood at the head of a long table decorated with marigolds and candles, lifted his glass of mezcal, looked straight past me, and said, "To Diego, the future of this family. The one who will carry our name forward." 40 people clapped. My mother beamed. My little brother grinned like a man who had just won something he never competed for. I sat 3 chairs from the end, still wearing my work blazer because I had driven straight from the office, and felt something behind my ribs go perfectly quiet. Then my father added the part that broke something permanent. He glanced toward me with the half-smile he always used when he thought he was being charming and said, "Megan counts the pennies. Diego makes the magic. Every family needs both, but only one gets remembered." The table laughed. Not cruel laughter. Not exactly. More like the comfortable kind that happens when people agree with a man they have never bothered to question. Diego shrugged modestly. My mother touched my father's arm, like he had said something wise. I set my fork down so carefully it didn't make a sound. Then I heard my own voice, steady and flat, and completely unfamiliar to me, say, "Then let Diego pay for it. All of it. I'm done." My father actually chuckled. He looked around the table with the confidence of a man who has never once been challenged in his own restaurant and said, "Pay for what? Megan, you help with a few numbers now and then. Don't make it dramatic. A few numbers." That phrase sat in my stomach like a stone because I knew, down to the last decimal, exactly how many numbers I had helped with. And it was not a few. Before I tell you what happened after I stood up, and what my father said when he finally saw the documents I brought back, let me give you the full picture, because this didn't start at that dinner. It started years ago, in a kitchen that smelled like roasted chiles and broken promises. I grew up in Austin, Texas, in a family that ran a Mexican restaurant called Casa Torres. My grandfather opened it in 1989, with a borrowed stove and a recipe book my grandmother carried across the border in a plastic bag. By the time I was old enough to bus tables, Casa Torres was an institution. Not fancy, not trendy, just deeply loved by the kind of people who came back every Friday for 30 years. My father, Raul Torres, took over when my grandfather's hands got too stiff to roll masa. My mother, Lucia, ran the front of house with a warmth that made strangers feel like family. And then there was Diego, 4 years younger than me, handsome in that effortless way that made teachers forgive late homework and girls forgive everything else. He was the baby, the boy, the heir. I was the oldest, the girl, the one who was supposed to help until Diego was ready. Nobody ever defined what ready meant, so it never arrived. I went to UT Austin on a partial scholarship, studied accounting, and graduated with the kind of GPA that gets you a handshake from the dean and absolutely no applause at the family dinner table. My father's only comment was, "Good, now you can help with the books." Diego, meanwhile, announced he wanted to attend culinary school in Houston, not a community program. A private institute that cost $42,000 a year. My parents couldn't afford it. The restaurant was clearing maybe $11,000 a month in profit at that point, and half of that went back into maintenance. So my father called me one evening while I was reviewing spreadsheets at my apartment and said the sentence that started everything. "Megita, your brother has a gift. We just need a little help getting him started." A little help. That phrase should come with a warning label in families like mine. I paid the first semester, then the second. Then the summer intensive in Oaxaca that my mother swore would change Diego's life. I told myself it was an investment. Diego would graduate, come back, modernize the restaurant, and eventually, I would be paid back. That was the deal. Unwritten, but understood. At least I understood it. I'm not sure anyone else even considered it a deal. By the time Diego graduated and came back to Austin with a certificate and a closet full of chef's coats he barely used, I had paid $94,000 toward his education. $94,000 from a woman making $72,000 a year as a staff accountant at a mid-size construction firm, plus another $38,000 or so annually, from bookkeeping side work I did for 3 small businesses after hours and on weekends. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment with second-hand furniture. I drove a 9-year-old Civic. I hadn't taken a vacation in 4 years. That's how I had the money, in case you're wondering. I earned it by working 2 jobs while spending almost nothing on myself. Diego came home to a hero's welcome. My parents threw a party at the restaurant. My father introduced him to every regular as the chef who's going to put Casa Torres on the map. Diego smiled that golden smile and talked about flavor profiles and elevated street food and farm-to-table sourcing. My mother cried with pride. Nobody mentioned who paid for any of it. Not once. Then the real bleeding started. The restaurant needed a new commercial oven. Diego insisted on a $28,000 imported unit from Italy because it matched his vision. My father called me. The walk-in cooler failed 2 months later. My father called me. The health department flagged the ventilation system. My father called me. Diego wanted to rebrand, new menus, new signage, a photographer for the website. My father called me every single time, and every single time he said the same thing. This is for the family, Magida. Family takes care of family. I kept a spreadsheet. Not because I was planning anything, just because I'm an accountant. It's what we do. We track. Column A, date. Column B, what it was for. Column C, amount. Column D, who asked. Column E, who benefited. Over the next 3 years after Diego returned, I poured another $73,000 into that restaurant and into my family. Property tax when my father fell behind. Liability insurance he let lapse. A lawyer when Diego got into a contract dispute with a food delivery app and handled it so badly the company threatened to sue. Even the deposit on Diego's apartment downtown because he said living above the restaurant was killing his creativity. Total. From the first culinary school payment to the month of that anniversary dinner. $167,412. I know the number because I calculated it the night before the party. I sat on my bed with my laptop open, scrolled to the bottom of the spreadsheet, and stared at a sum that represented nearly every sacrifice I had made in my adult life. $167,000. Gone into a family that had never once said, "We owe you." But I wasn't angry yet. Not really. Anger needs a spark, and I had gotten so used to the weight that I had forgotten I was carrying it. The spark came at that dinner. When my father called me a penny counter in front of 40 people and crowned Diego the family's future with money I had provided, something I had been holding together for years simply let go. Not dramatically, not loudly. Like a cable that had been under tension so long it didn't snap, it just quietly separated. I stood up. The chairs scraped against the tile floor of the restaurant, and the sound cut through the music. My mother looked at me. Diego looked at me. My father looked at me with the expression he always wore when I did something inconvenient, mild irritation dressed up as patience. "Megan, sit down. This is your brother's night." "It's always his night," I said, "paid for with my money." Someone at the far end of the table whispered something. My father's smile tightened. "You're embarrassing yourself," he said quietly, the way he always said things that were meant to sound like concern, but functioned as threats. I picked up my bag, looked at Diego, who had not said a single word, and walked out of Casa Torres for the last time as the person they expected me to be. The parking lot smelled like grilled onions and exhaust. I sat in my Civic with both hands on the steering wheel, shaking, not crying. I was past crying. I was in the territory beyond tears where your body vibrates with a clarity so sharp it almost hurts. I drove home, opened my laptop, and did what I do best. I organized. The spreadsheet became a dossier. Every wire transfer got matched to a bank confirmation. Every check got paired with a photo of the deposit. Every emergency call from my father got cross-referenced with the payment that followed within 48 hours. Diego's school invoices, the oven purchase, the insurance lapse, the lawyer retainer, the property tax, the apartment deposit, all of it dated, sourced, and unquestionable. I called the one person I trusted with ugly truths. My friend Nora Chen, a forensic accountant I met at a continuing education seminar 3 years ago. Nora was the kind of woman who read financial statements the way other people read thrillers, with genuine suspense and occasional gasps. She picked up on the second ring. You sound like someone who just opened a door they can't close. I'm building a binder, I said. How big? $167,000 big. She went quiet for 3 seconds, which for Nora was the equivalent of a scream. I'll bring coffee. Send me everything. By midnight, Nora was at my kitchen table with her laptop, a legal pad, and a box of highlighters. We worked until 4 in the morning. Somewhere around 2 a.m., she found the detail that turned this from a family argument into something uglier. Megan, she said slowly, staring at her screen. Some of your payments show up in the restaurant's books as owner capital injection. What does that mean? It means your father recorded your money as his money. On paper, he's the one funding the business. Your name doesn't appear anywhere. That landed like a slap. Not because I didn't suspect it, but because seeing it confirmed in black and white made the betrayal structural. My father hadn't just taken my money. He had erased me from the record of giving it. There's more, Nora continued. Diego's been expensing personal items through the restaurant account. Clothes, a gym membership, even a weekend in Marfa with his girlfriend. All categorized as brand development and menu research. I laughed. I actually laughed. The kind of sound that comes out when your body doesn't know whether to be furious or impressed by the audacity. We kept building. Nora helped me create a clean professional document organized into 6 sections. Section 1. Personal transfers by date, amount, and purpose. Section 2. Restaurant obligations I covered. Section 3. Diego's education costs. Section 4. Diego's personal expenses run through the business. Section 5. My father's public statements and social media posts claiming he self-funded everything. Section 6. A formal letter stating that all financial support was terminated effective immediately, with a request for a repayment plan. That last section was Nora's idea. If you ever want legal recourse, she said, you need a paper trail that shows you asked. We printed it at a FedEx office at 5 a.m. The clerk looked at the thickness of the document and said, lawsuit? Family dinner, I said. He winced. Worse. My phone started buzzing at 7 a.m. My mother first. Megita, your father is very upset. You need to come back and apologize to your brother. Then Diego, casual as always. Hey sis, Dad says you got weird last night. You good? Then my father, not a call, just a text, 1 line. We'll discuss your behavior on Sunday. My behavior, not his toast, not the humiliation, not the years of financial extraction. My behavior. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I went to work, sat at my desk, and did something I should have done years ago. I canceled every automatic transfer, the monthly restaurant insurance supplement, the quarterly property tax backup, the standing payment to the lawyer still cleaning up Diego's contract mess. One by one, I watched them disappear from my banking app, like sutures being removed from a wound that finally needed to breathe. Sunday arrived the way family confrontations always do, slowly and then all at once. My parents' house was a 3-bedroom ranch in South Austin that my grandfather bought in 1995. My mother kept it immaculate. Lace curtains, religious candles on the windowsill, plastic covers on the living room furniture that she only removed for company. The dining table was already set when I arrived, 4 places, my mother's pozole simmering on the stove. My father was in his chair at the head of the table. Diego sat to his right, scrolling his phone like none of this mattered. My mother hovered near the kitchen doorway, twisting a dish towel in her hands. Sit, my father said. Not please. Just sit. I sat. I placed my bag on the floor beside my chair. My father started the way he always did when he wanted to reassert control, calmly, firmly, as if explaining gravity to someone who didn't understand physics. What happened Friday was unacceptable. You do not disrespect your brother at his celebration. You do not make family business public. You do not walk out of a room where your parents are present. I let him finish. Then I said, "Are you done?" His jaw tightened. "Excuse me?" I asked if you're done. Because now it's my turn. Diego looked up from his phone for the first time. My mother stepped fully into the dining room. You told a table of 40 people that Diego is the family's future, I said. You called me a penny counter. You said only he gets remembered. And every single thing in that restaurant, the oven he demanded, the insurance you dropped, the school that gave him his certificate, every bit of it was paid for by me. My father scoffed. The exact same scoff from Friday night. You helped here and there, Megan. Don't exaggerate. That's what family does. $167,412. The number landed in the room like a grenade with a delayed fuse. My mother's hand went to her mouth. Diego actually put his phone down. My father blinked twice. Fast. That's absurd, he said, but his voice had shifted. Just slightly, just enough. I reached into my bag and pulled out a single sheet of paper, not the full binder, just the summary page. Dates down the left column, amounts down the middle, purposes on the right. The total bolded at the bottom. I slid it across the table to my father. He picked it up the way you pick up something you suspect might bite you, carefully, at the edges. His eyes moved down the page. I watched his face change. The confidence drained first, then the color, then the posture. By the time he reached the bottom, he looked like a man standing in a house he just realized was on fire. This is, he started. Accurate, I said. Every line has a bank confirmation behind it. Every transfer has a timestamp. Every emergency you called me about is logged with the payment that followed. My mother reached for the paper. My father let her take it. She read it faster than he did. And when she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. But I couldn't tell if they were from shame or from fear that the money might actually stop. Diego leaned over. Wait, you paid for culinary school? All of it? I stared at him. You thought it was free? Dad said he handled it. I turned to my father. You told him you paid for his education? My father said nothing. His silence was louder than any lie he had ever told. This is one page, I said. The full document is 47 pages. It includes your social media posts about self-funding the restaurant, Diego's personal expenses charged to the business account, and a formal request for repayment. Repayment? My father's voice cracked on the word like it was made of something brittle. You're going to charge your own family? You're going to deny your own daughter? I said. Again? In front of us? My mother started crying quietly. Diego pushed back from the table. This is insane, he muttered. You're tearing the family apart over money. No, I said. I'm showing you what the family was actually built on. And it wasn't Diego's magic. It was my spreadsheet. I stood up, took the summary page back, and put it in my bag. The transfers are already stopped. The insurance supplement, the tax backup, the lawyer payments, all of it. Gone as of Thursday. My father stood too. You can't do this. I already did. We're your family, Megan. Then act like it. I left before the posel was served. Monday morning came fast. I was at my desk by 7:30, reviewing a contractor's bid package, when my phone buzzed. My father. The first time he had called me directly since the anniversary dinner. The insurance company is saying the policy lapsed, he said. No greeting, no warmth, just panic wearing a thin coat of anger. Then renew it, I said. With what? You know the account is tight right now. I know exactly how tight it is. I've known for years. The difference is, now it's your problem. He called me ungrateful. He called me selfish. He said my grandfather would be ashamed. That one almost worked. Almost. But then, I remembered that my grandfather built Casa Torres with borrowed money, and a work ethic my father had replaced with my checkbook. Hire an accountant, I said. A real one. One you actually pay. I hung up. Diego texted that afternoon. Mom won't stop crying. Are you happy now? I read it, set my phone face down, and went back to work. By Wednesday, Nora had found something else. She'd been digging into the restaurant's tax filings because she's Nora, and once she starts pulling threads, she doesn't stop. 3 of my large transfers, the ones recorded as owner capital injection, had been used to claim tax deductions my father wasn't entitled to. He had essentially laundered my gifts into business expenses and reduced his tax liability with money that was never his. This isn't just ungrateful, Nora said over the phone. This is potentially fraudulent. If someone audits this and connects your bank records to his filings, he's in real trouble. I didn't want to destroy my father. I want you to understand that. I didn't start this to watch him fall. But I had spent a decade being the invisible foundation of a building that kept getting taller while I sank deeper into the ground. And when I finally stepped out from underneath it, I was not going to rush back just because the structure started swaying. 2 weeks passed. The restaurant missed a vendor payment. Then a second. A food supplier switched Casa Torres to cash on delivery. One of the longtime cooks quit when his paycheck bounced. Diego, who had never managed a crisis that couldn't be solved with charm, started posting less on social media and showing up to the restaurant looking like he hadn't slept. My mother came to my apartment on a Tuesday evening. She brought tamales. She always brought food when she wanted something, as if feeding me would remind my body of the debt it owed her. "Your father is too proud to ask," she said, sitting on my couch with her hands folded in her lap. "But the restaurant is in trouble, Magida. The restaurant has been in trouble for 5 years, Mom. You just didn't notice because I was fixing it. Then fix it again. For the family. I am not the family's emergency fund." She looked at me with an expression that was half hurt and half something harder, something that looked almost like resentment. "You've changed," she said. "No," I said. I stopped pretending I hadn't. She left the tamales. I ate them. They were good. That made me sadder than anything else that week. The event that ended everything was not planned by me. It was planned by my father, which made it almost poetic. Every year in October, the Austin Restaurant Association held a heritage dinner honoring family-owned businesses. Casa Torres had been nominated for a legacy award, a recognition my father had campaigned for quietly by telling every committee member that the restaurant had survived 3 decades through family sacrifice and zero outside help. Zero outside help. $167,000 of zero outside help. Nora heard about the dinner through a friend in the food industry and called me immediately. "He's going to accept an award for self-reliance," she said. "While standing on your money." I almost let it go. I almost decided that walking away was enough. That the transfers stopping and the silence growing and the slow financial suffocation would teach them what my words never could. But then Diego posted a photo of himself in a new blazer with the caption, "Legacy isn't given, it's built. Honored to carry the Torres name forward. Number Casa Torres number, family first." And the comments underneath were full of people praising my father's grit, and Diego's talent, and my mother's devotion, and not a single person on that entire thread knew that the foundation they were admiring was made of my savings. So I RSVP'd to the heritage dinner, and I brought the binder. The event was at a converted warehouse venue on East 6th Street. String lights, long communal tables, local wine, the kind of atmosphere that makes everyone feel like they're part of something authentic. My parents were already there when I arrived. My father in his best guayabera. My mother in the turquoise dress she saved for important nights. Diego in that blazer from the photo, shaking hands with a food critic from the Austin Chronicle like he had earned every thread on his body. My father saw me first. His face did something complicated. A flash of hope, then fear, then the rigid mask he wore whenever he decided to pretend everything was fine. He walked toward me with his arms half open, as if the last month hadn't happened, as if a hug could rewind the clock. "Megiddo," he said softly, "I'm glad you came." "I came for the truth," I said, "not the tamales." His arms dropped. The ceremony began. Awards were given to a barbecue family from Lockhart, a Vietnamese pho shop on North Lamar, a soul food restaurant near the east side. Then my father was called to the stage. He walked up with the confidence of a man who had rehearsed his gratitude. He thanked my grandfather. He thanked my mother. He thanked Diego for bringing fresh vision to the family tradition. He thanked the community for 30 years of support. He did not thank me. Not a word. Not a glance. As if I did not exist. As if $167,412 had simply materialized from the air, like some benevolent weather pattern that required no acknowledgement. And that was when I understood that this would never stop. Not through silence, not through patience, not through the slow withdrawal of support. My father would rewrite history as many times as necessary to keep his story comfortable. The only way to end the lie was to interrupt it with proof. I stood up. The room didn't notice at first. Then it did. I walked to the front, and my father, still holding his award, watched me approach with the expression of a man who has just heard a sound he cannot identify in a dark house. Before my father finishes, I said, my voice carrying further than I expected in that high-ceilinged room, there's a part of this story he left out. Murmurs. My mother half stood. Diego froze with a wine glass halfway to his mouth. My father leaned toward me and whispered through a locked jaw, "Not here, Megan. Not here." "You did it here," I said, "at the anniversary dinner. In front of 40 people. You called me a penny counter and crowned Diego the future. So yes, here." I set the binder on the podium. Black cover, tabbed sections. 47 pages of what it actually costs to be the dependable one in a family that confuses obedience with love. I opened to the first page and turned it toward the room. Section 1. Personal transfers from my bank account to family accounts over 6 years. Total. 150. Set. 400 dots. The silence in that room was so dense it had texture. I kept going. Section 2. Restaurant operating expenses I covered after my father let them lapse. Section 3. My brother's culinary education, which my father told him he paid for. Diego's face went white. He looked at my father. My father did not look back. Section 4. Personal expenses my brother charged to the restaurant as business costs, including a weekend trip to Marfa listed as menu research. A few people in the audience actually gasped. Someone near the back whispered something that sounded like, "Oh my God." Section 5. Public statements by my family claiming they built this business with no outside help. Every statement contradicted by a bank record. I turned to the final section. And Section 6. A formal notice of financial withdrawal and a request for repayment, which has been ignored for 34 days. My father's hand was shaking. The award plaque in his grip looked suddenly cheap. "Megan," he said, and his voice broke in the middle of my name. "Please. I know This isn't. You're my daughter." "I know," I said. "That's what made it so easy for you." I closed the binder. The man sitting next to the food critic, a representative from the Restaurant Association, stood and said very quietly, "We should take a break." My mother was crying. Diego had put his wine glass down and was staring at the tablecloth like it contained instructions for a situation he had never imagined. Two of my father's vendor contacts were already talking to each other in low, urgent voices, the way people talk when they're recalculating trust. I picked up the binder, walked back to my seat, collected my bag, and headed for the door. My father called after me, "Megan, Megan, wait." I turned once. "Have you noticed," I said, "that the person you call dramatic is always the person who finally stopped being convenient?" Nobody answered. The string lights kept glowing. The wine kept breathing. But the story my father had been telling for 30 years had just ended, and everyone in that room knew it. The aftermath moved faster than I expected. Within 10 days, 2 of Casa Torres' biggest suppliers requested financial reviews before extending further credit. The Restaurant Association quietly rescinded the Legacy Award, pending an internal review. A food blogger who had been at the dinner wrote a piece about transparency in family businesses without naming us, but everyone in Austin's food scene knew exactly who it was about. Diego called me once, 3 days after the dinner. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just said, "I didn't know, Megan. About the school. About any of it." He told me he took out loans. I believed him. Diego was many things. Lazy, entitled, sheltered. But he wasn't a liar. He was just a man raised inside a lie. "You know now," I said. "What am I supposed to do with that?" "Whatever you want. That's the whole point. You get to choose." I did too. He went quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'm sorry," and hung up. It was the first apology anyone in my family had offered, and it came from the person I expected it from least. My father never apologized. He tried once more to pull me back. He waited outside my office building on a Friday evening, leaning against a parking meter, looking smaller than I remembered. For one breath, the daughter in me wanted to fold. He was my father. He smelled like cumin and Old Spice, and every Saturday morning I ever spent watching him open the restaurant before sunrise. Then he said, "You proved your point. Come back. We need you." Not "I was wrong." Not "I'm sorry." Not "you deserved better." Just, "We need you." As if need and love were the same thing. As if the only version of me that mattered was the one that wrote checks. "You needed my money," I said. "You never needed me." He looked like I had reached into his chest and rearranged something vital. Maybe I had. 4 months after the Heritage dinner, Casa Torres closed. Not with a dramatic final service or a tearful farewell post. Just a piece of paper taped to the door on a Monday morning and a for-lease sign in the window by Wednesday. My mother told a neighbor they were retiring. My father told no one anything. Diego got a line cook position at a restaurant on South Congress and, for the first time in his life, started earning a living that had nothing to do with our last name. People in the neighborhood said it was sad. 35 years gone. I understood the sadness. I had eaten my first solid food in that kitchen. I had done homework in booth number 4. I had fallen asleep to the sound of my mother locking up at midnight. But the restaurant didn't die because I left. It died because it had been dead for years, and I had been performing CPR with my savings account while my family took bows. As for me, I kept my apartment. I kept my Civic. I kept my side clients. And Nora and I started building something together, a consulting practice for small family businesses that needed honest books and hard conversations before the hard conversations became public ones. We called it Claridad Financial. It means clarity. It also means the thing my family never gave me, and the thing I finally gave myself. I kept one page from the binder in the top drawer of my desk. The summary page. The one my father held at the Sunday dinner when his face lost its color. Not because I enjoy the memory, because I need to remember what it felt like to be worth $167,412 to a family that couldn't say thank you. Some nights, driving home along the river, I passed the building where Casa Torres used to be. There's a ramen shop there now. The marigolds are gone, the sign is gone. My grandfather's name is gone. But I'm still here, unborrowed, unbroken, and for the first time in my adult life, unspent. So let me ask you this. If the people who raised you only noticed your value after you stopped giving it away, would you go back to being invisible? Or would you let them sit in the silence and learn what your presence was actually worth?